What if I could get you a 90-minute workout or longer in just 20 minutes? Well, in this episode, I sit down with EMS expert Conrad Sanchez of Conrad Fitness to unpack the game-changing technology of whole body electromuscular stimulation, or EMS. Now, this is something that I am very familiar with, as I worked for a company for about a year and a half doing the same thing. And for that short time was mind blown with the results from using EMS. So in this episode, we talk about how EMS delivers faster strength gains, which I know of, how it works for busy professionals and those recovering from injuries, which is huge. So if you're looking for more efficiency, low impact fitness like I'm always doing, I took a break from that technology, but Conrad has never stopped. So stay tuned. So Conrad, thanks for coming on this show. I was real excited to get you on with EMS technology, electromuscular stimulation, as I have had some experience with that, as we were talking before the show, with a certain company that came into Orange County while I was running my gyms. Really like the technology. Curious what your take is on it. But before we get started, my audience always knows we want to get to know you a little bit and just how you got into this, and then we'll go on from there. I'll let you take it away.
Well, one, thank you for having me. I listened to your previous episode about the vagus nerve. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here. My name is Conrad Sanchez, and I've been focusing on EMS for the past 6 years. One of maybe a handful of us in the US that has this much experience and knowledge about EMS. Otherwise, I've been a trainer for 15 years, mostly working with people with injuries, chronic conditions, diabetes, and so on.
When you started messing with the EMS technology, what kind of gravitated you towards that, and what made you stick with it versus all your other personal training methods?
I was lucky enough to meet an investor that owned a franchise in Brazil. He wanted to recreate it in the US, and he hired me as his head trainer. And so I got educated through XBody at the time and became an educator for XBody. And we were going to raise funds and open a bunch of studios in the US, and then COVID hit and all those plans shut down. But I was fascinated by the technology because, as I said, like most of my career, I've trained people with injuries, aches, chronic conditions, also the busy executives, the stay-at-home moms that are like overloaded with tasks and kids. I was always looking for ways to, like, how can I train them more efficiently, faster, quicker, better? And then EMS sort of like solved a lot of these obstacles towards exercising consistently, and I fell in love with it.
Why don't you go into what EMS actually is? It's electromuscular stimulation threaded through a suit. You put on the suit, and then I know there's different like frequencies or wavelengths or whatever. It's been a while since I was messing with the technology.
It's good that you have this understanding already. EMS is short for electrical muscle stimulation, or electro muscle stimulation. Electromyostimulation is just electricity, muscle stimulation. In itself, it is short for whole body EMS. This is when we say EMS, we're talking about whole body EMS as opposed to localized EMS, which is what they use in physical therapy. So whole body EMS, or WBEMS, is a vest, just like you explained. It's a vest with electrodes on all the major muscle groups. It's controlled through a device, usually an iPad. It has a battery, and you can turn up or down any muscle group as high or as low as you want it, and then go through a workout. The workout is about 20 minutes long, equates to roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours of weightlifting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
From my experiences using EMS in the past, it was exactly that. I did it for probably 6 months, if not longer. Took time off and then went back on. I pretty much did 15 to 20 minute workouts and saw the results as if I had worked out for an hour and a half to 2 hours, even less weight. So I definitely know it works.
how does it work?
The whole theory is recruiting more muscle fibers than if you didn't have it on. Thus, you can go a little bit less time with the same efficiency rating. Does your suit have any electrodes like around the thighs and quads, or it's all in a vest on the top?
So it's top and bottom. It's glutes, hamstrings. The whole body EMS suits typically have chest, lats, lower back, abs, glutes, hamstrings, quads, arms. Then the manufacturers will differ a little bit. Some have shoulders, some have biceps and triceps separated. Most of them, you can add calves if you want. For the most part, the majority of the muscles are covered. Like you said, there's a frequency, pulse width. These are the main parameters, and then duration of the stimulation. There's the main parameters that you can play around with to elicit different muscle fiber stimulation or engagement. Typically 85 hertz, 350 pulse width is the standard that they use for all the research studies to compare it to strength training. That's usually what most companies will use in terms of strength training workouts.
Kind of the same theory as the one I was using before. I remember them offering just a top section for people who didn't want to have to put on a whole suit. And, they're saying that you could still get added benefits from EMS only on your upper body, like with a vest, that you'd get some
Trans
currents down there, probably not as much. So
some radiation from the electricity.
better to use the whole thing. If you just refuse to wear full pants, you could get some benefits.
See a lot of companies marketing materials using 90% of muscles engaged. I question that because engaged doesn't mean worked out. Like you're never going to be super sore from your forearms or your calves if you don't have electrodes on them. But the nerve that stimulates your forearm goes through your arm first. And so if you're stimulating the arm, then you're going to get some stimulation through your forearm. Is it enough to say that you're getting a workout in your fingers? I question that. But.
Yeah. So what have you seen with all the clients you've been training who have been on it for a good amount of time? Are you seeing great results, or there's certain people like you can't beat a bad diet type thing? Or is this something that you can get a little extra bump than what they were currently doing before?
For the most part, this is a new technology and people have not really done it. Or if they've done it for a short period of time. They've tried it a couple of times here and there. So for most people that get started into EMS, it's already a new modality and that will change whatever they were doing before and elicits some benefits. In addition to that, EMS really shines as a strength training tool. It gets people stronger faster, not just because it's 20 minutes, but because from day one, you can target type 2 muscle fibers. If you were to train someone with traditional training, you would start at light weights and then over a period of like 8 to 12 weeks, start going into heavier sets and actual strength training. Here from day one, you can already get that. And so people get stronger faster. And so the main thing that I see across the board is that everybody gets stronger. The other body composition benefits, typically everybody that starts usually gets positive body composition within 8 sessions. I take body fat caliper measurements and circumference measurements. And so from the arms, from waist, from the hips, and everybody gets, of course, there's like margin of error, but like the trend is always usually maintain or increase muscle mass and decrease fat mass, which is what everybody wants. These are very positive trends. Then over time, like nutrition, sleep, hormones, like all has to be in place in order to maintain continuously positive outcomes. But yeah, I mean, in 20 minutes, you're getting the equivalent of an hour and a half, 2 hours of working out. And so if you're doing it twice a week, this is what I recommend to all my clients. Your strength needs are covered. You also get a bit of a cardio effect. It's still an intense workout. All the muscles are firing at the same time. So you are getting a little bit of a cardio effect. For the most part, I recommend everybody to, depending on their fitness level, go for a hike, swim, bike, whatever you enjoy doing outside. But for the strength needs, like if you're doing 2-3 times a week, that's more than enough.
Yeah. Have you ever had any clients using trackers like the Whoop or Garmin or Apple Watch? You know, I didn't have this at the time that I was doing all the EMS, so I never saw if there was an improvement in VO2 max, HRV, any of that kind of stuff. Have you seen anything like that, or this is kind of more just for building muscle strength training?
So a little bit of both. I've seen VO2 and HRV improvements through research studies.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that in research studies that they show like cyclists and doing EMS and blah, blah, and runners, and they all have positive. And to say that they have positive effects, even though the workout is still a strength workout, it's still the strength parameters. And so it's not like you're training runners with EMS to like running with EMS. You're not doing cardio with EMS. You're still doing strength training, you're improving your cardio markers. So that is remarkable to say about EMS. In terms of my clients using these trackers, I don't track their numbers myself, but a lot of them like to tell me like, oh, I burned these many calories. I like to question, but also these trackers, none of them have EMS as a modality. Like you have to select something that is either resistance training or circuit training or whatever. Who knows how it's actually tracking, if it's tracking it correctly.
For someone like me, like my HRV, my VO2 max, and I put a lot of work in what I'm doing for my current routine. Pretty much, it's not going to move up more than it is right now. It's all at great levels. So it'd be more trying it out to see, do I see a significant change or not? But the main attraction is that I can get an hour and a half workout done in 20 minutes. That's killer, especially for my audience. We're all about efficiency.
And especially for our audience, like I just turned 40, so I know the injuries that come with it and the pains and the aches. And like the thing with EMS is that because the stimulation is directly on the muscle, you don't have to move through full ranges of motion to get the benefit. As long as you can contract the muscle. I've had people with a frozen shoulder still get plenty of benefit from it, even though they can't move the shoulder. EMS provides the stimulation or the load, so you don't need to use a lot of external weights. And the stress on the joints there's nothing more intense yet low impact than EMS.
Yeah. From the EMS suit that I had tried 4 years ago, they were really pushing it to do different things, yoga, Pilates, do it while you're biking, hiking. Do you see any benefits to that? Or is it mostly you're going to get the best value out of muscle building, strength training because of the stem versus those other.
There's no comparison. Pilates is interesting.
It's like an in-betweener, yeah.
Pilates, for the most part, elicits type 1 muscle fibers. It's a lot of repetitions, etc. And adding EMS makes it incredible. The few times I've seen it, and I train a client with a Pilates instructor, I'm not a Pilates certified instructor, but with a Pilates instructor and me controlling EMS, the client had an amazing experience. I do think that Pilates and EMS have a good crossover. Things like yoga, unless you're setting the suit to super superficial stimulation, but at that point, it's just a gimmick. You should focus on what yoga is for, which is the flexibility, the balance, the mindset, the meditation, the breath work, all it goes into yoga. So,
from my experience, I did it running, I did all the other things too. And I felt it more when I was pumping the workout.
Yeah.
So
you're going to get something extra out of it, but would I pay a session with to do that?
And that's the thing. At the time, I had a suit complimentary, so it's free. So I could do all those things. But if you're paying sessions for this kind of stuff, I just want the best thing for the buck, for sure.
Yeah.
You were talking about the different types of muscle fibers. So like something like the calves and forearms, different for some people, a little bit different.
Calves are probably more for slow twitch. So slow twitch is for like more endurance, longer, fatigue resistant, and fast twitch is for power, strength. I'm not sure if they're more resistant or more, it kind of depends on the person, but
yeah, for me, it was more of, the skinny calves, probably more, what's that, slow twitch. So for growth on that, have you seen anything for people who had the skinny calves, skinny forearms? Because ours back then didn't go all the way down to the calves. Yeah. We were hoping that because it was on the thighs, it would transfer down, but I saw nothing for growth down.
No, in the calves, you have to train a lot and you have to do reps. And so the calves is interesting because typically most people's calves are tight to begin with. Like they're already tight. And you add stimulation to them, it gets them very tight, very sore. And I have a suspicion that they're getting tighter rather than stronger. And so I don't use it on the calves at all.
Okay.
You can implement, like, since the stimulation is all over the body, and this is the beauty of EMS, even if you're doing just calf raises, the rest of the stimulation is going through the entire body. You're getting a workout in the entire body, even though you're focusing on the calves. The suit that you tried now has calves. Elongated the suit that I use, I could add calves. I just don't. I find it's just more cables, more things to attach, more time spent for a muscle that is already tight to begin with. Encouraged to train. Like I understand for aesthetic reasons that you would train calves and do calf raises, but for the most part, the people that I train usually suffer from plantar fasciitis and so on. They don't need calves that get to it.
Yeah. And you know what? Back in my 20s and 30s, when I cared about aesthetics and did put all the work in for training calves, and they did grow marginally, wasn't great enough. And I ended up almost blowing out my Achilles in the process.
Exactly.
Just be happy where you are. So Conrad, for these suits and what you're doing, is this a local in-person training session, or can you do webinars, online training, or do you have anything like that?
Yeah. So I do several things. I train people in person, and that has to be in person. EMS for now does not have a remote possibility, at least not with a trainer. I train people in person in LA, and I also have workshop that I give virtually or in person. The in-person workshop includes practical practice, but this is for the trainers that want to get into EMS. Right now, there isn't any neutral education. So if you wanted to get educated in EMS, you basically have to buy a suit from a manufacturer. They run up from $10,000 to $20,000. And if you're a company that wants to train trainers, not all manufacturers provide education. Some is better than others, but not all manufacturers have education. I've created this workshop to educate trainers. And even if you've gone through the education of one of the manufacturers, I've actually gotten the education of all of them. Like all the ones that offer education, I've gotten all of them and compiled the bits and pieces that I thought were more pertinent to a trainer to educate them quicker and get them all the knowledge they need. I offer virtual and in-person workshops. Another thing I do is business consulting. I just did this for a company in Santa Barbara. It's a Pilates studio. They wanted to add EMS as a different service. And so I went up there and trained their head trainer and the other trainer and the workshop, but also guided them through, like how should they price things, what makes sense with EMS.
Very cool.
So business consulting.
Yeah. So if you had some fitness enthusiasts that had, a decent amount of money to buy one of these suits for home use, could they just pay for your services to teach them how to use it?
The virtual workshop is a few hours long, and it's mainly for trainers that want to become EMS trainers.
Yeah.
For an individual that is interested, I offer a 15-minute free phone consultation. If that's not enough, I offer a 1-hour consultation if they want to know more in depth of what they can do. But usually the suits that you can buy for the consumer are pretty dumbed down to or simplified, I would say.
Okay.
Or for the consumer to just turn it on, go up and down the muscles, but not necessarily be able to change the parameters, understanding the parameters behind it, like the 85 Hertz that I mentioned and so on. Like you're not going to be able to change that. You can only select the workout you want, and that changes the parameters behind the screen. You're not going to be able to change it.
So it sounds better to be in the LA area or close by.
if you want to train with me. Otherwise, I'm trying to create a network of trainers that I trust that have gone through education in the country and beyond. There aren't that many of us. And I've heard of people trying EMS and having a bad experience. For now, EMS is so niche that it's going to be very hard for people to discern, like, I had a bad experience. Was it the trainer or was it the technology or was it both?
So then you're still the resource center for other trainers that may be closer to where my audience lives. Because, obviously my podcast is national, global, whatever. I can't pinpoint exactly where everyone is, right? Hey, having the education is pretty much mandatory on this type of technology because there are things that can happen by overstimulating your muscles and doing the wrong thing. Like back when I was doing this, there was a horror story of someone getting one of these products. At that time, the company was selling it to the consumer, taking it to some kind of boot camp class, and then they just ended up jacking the level of stimulation to, it was a percentage thing. So all the way up to like 90%, which almost everyone else did like 40 or 30% because they got used to it, but ended up at the end of the class losing the power of their legs and then collapsing and then going to the hospital and having renal failure, like all this weird stuff. But they were helped and no problems came of it, but still when people push themselves without the right education. So I want to put that out there to the audience.
Yeah, but also taking a class, like classes typically are an hour long. You're doing EMS for an hour.
That's ridiculous.
It's supposed to be 20 minutes for a reason. It's not 20 minutes as a marketing tool. It's 20 minutes for a specific health reason.
And just because you feel like you can take it does not mean that that's good for your body.
Yeah.
So that was the worst of the horror stories. There was other ones that weren't that bad, but that one was, oh God, we got to really watch out for this.
Exactly. Education is key. Yes.
Very cool. Anything else you're trying to put together with your business, either locally or nationally?
No, I mean, for now, in terms of clients, fully booked pretty much. I am trying to see if there's a trainer in LA that is interested in getting into EMS. I have a colleague and myself that are trying to put together a team to have someone to refer clients to that we trust and know that has gone through the education. So if there's any trainers in the LA area that is interested in working with me and my colleague, then that'd be great. For any information on EMS, you can go to conrademsfitness.com. And my Instagram is at Conrad Fitness. Very, very original.
Yeah, no worries. I'll definitely put that all in the show notes so everyone can click on the links. As far as trainers outside of LA, California, are you envisioning grabbing some of them?
For the trainers outside of LA, I would say if you're interested in the education, if you're interested in learning more, please reach out. I can help you get in touch with distributors. I'm not tied to one company or the other. I know the distributors for several companies. I can make recommendations based on budget and interest in terms of what suit to choose. I can provide the education and refer people. A lot of clients go between LA and New York. So I looked for a company in New York that trained with EMS and I spoke to the owner. I do want to establish relationships with other EMS providers in the entire country.
Very cool. I'll have all the links in the show notes for that. For anyone who's interested, check out your website. Whoever's in the LA area, you can at least get a session with you. Conrad, thanks for coming on, and final words. That's pretty much it.
Thank you so much. This was sweet and short, just like EMS. So fun. Thank you so much for having me, Brad.
Absolutely.